Hi there again, Marvin Kilborn here. I'm a retired public school teacher. The last couple videos I did had to do with Holsey Middle School, an inner city, mostly Black and Hispanic school that I taught in Dallas, Texas. Was there for a year and a half. Got tired of doing the 4-hour daily commute, and also, if you watch the videos, I'd had about enough of that idiot principal I had to work for. Everybody else basically treated me pretty good. The other teachers I worked with, my students, but that principal was an idiot. So, and plus I was, again, tired of making that long drive. My wife and I couldn't sell our house, so I said, let's start looking for a job closer to home. So one of the schools I interviewed with was Chandler Intermediate School in little town of Chandler, Texas. Funny thing about Chandler is apparently, pretty much every little town in Texas has its own little independent school district. I was told a story once while I was at Chandler that I guess once upon a time they actually were the Chandler Independent School District, but I was told there was some kind of shootout, gunfight at a local school board meeting once upon a time years ago, and so the state basically took their independence away from them and rolled them up underneath the Brownsboro Independent School District. So that's how Chandler became a part of the Brownsboro Independent School District. Well, I had interviewed with Chandler. They were advertising a 6th grade math position. Chandler Intermediate is 4th, 5th, and 6th grades. So they interviewed me for a 6th grade math position. That's all they advertised it as, and the whole time that they interviewed me, this was the principal, the counselor, a couple other teachers. I think that one of the other math teachers and maybe English teacher, I don't know, but it was 4 ladies who interviewed me for the job. Talked to me for about an hour. The interview went really well. And again, all they talked about was 6th grade math. That is what I thought I was interviewing for, because that's what the principal said the job was. But the interview went really well, and a couple days later they called me, offered me the job. I gladly accepted it. One of the neat things about Chandler, it's only about a half-hour drive from my home in Tyler, so not a bad commute really at all. So Miss Jones, Mary Ann Jones, was the principal there, and she asked me if I could go over to the district offices and sign a contract. And she asked me if I could come talk to her, meet with her immediately after signing the contract. So I did. So signed my contract, went to meet with Miss Jones, Mary Ann. At that point, she informed me that since Chandler Intermediate doesn't have sports teams or sports activities, that they don't hire social studies teachers. So she expected her other teachers, math, science, English, they also had to teach some classes of social studies. Now, this wouldn't have bothered me. I mean, I am a certified social studies teacher, and if you've seen some of my earlier videos, I was getting really pissed off that I couldn't find a damn job teaching social studies. Well, here was another reason why I was having such a tough time finding a job. This intermediate school doesn't even hire social studies teachers. They just expect their other teachers to kind of do it as an additional duty. But if she had been honest about it, I still would have accepted the job. I mean, I am certified to teach social studies, and I don't mind it. It's easy to teach. So, but it bothered me because she clearly had misinformed me, and I believe she did it purposely. Sadly, this is one thing school districts do, is they freely lie to teachers. Even to get them to accept jobs, they'll lie to them. Throughout my career, I saw many teachers be told they were being interviewed for one position, but then once the school year started, they had to teach something else, or maybe a whole bunch of something else's. You interview thinking you're going to teach one subject, they hire you, next thing you're doing is teaching 3 or 4, maybe 5 subjects. Not an honorable profession when it comes to the way administrators rule it. It's really sad and needs to be fixed. I don't know if it'll ever get fixed, but it needs to be. Anyway, so I accept the contract. Oh, one funny thing was she mentioned that in Chandler, in Brownsboro ISD, they actually give the teachers a Christmas bonus. So she talked about this Christmas bonus, but at least she was honest and said how they do it. All they really do is take money away. They hold back money from your monthly paycheck, and at Christmas it's $500. They give you an extra $500 of what you should have been getting paid anyway, and they just call it a Christmas bonus. So I know you had to find the humor in that one, but that was just something else she shared with me, and I just had to laugh about that because it's just stupid. You either give a Christmas bonus or not. So anyway, the school year starts, and I'm excited to be there. I mean, I've got a job and it's close to home, and I'm excited. But it didn't take me long to start finding out that this is one truly strange place. Mary Ann, for one thing, ruled that school with an iron fist. I mean, we had to get everything approved. Lesson plans, uh, activities, videos, movies. If I wanted to use some outside sources like candy or food or whatever, like I did in Dallas, every single thing had to be approved by Miss Jones. I was talking to one teacher, and she was agonizing. She wanted to show this little 2 or 3 minute video, and she was agonizing over whether Miss Jones was going to approve it or not. I mean, I would have just shown it. I have to admit, going from Dallas to Chandler was a bit of almost like a culture shock thing. Even as a white man, it was kind of weird. I'd spent basically 2 years teaching in an inner city school, which was 85% black, 15% Hispanic. Had one and only one, well, two over the whole 2 years, two white kids. And I'm going to Chandler, which is like 97, 98% white. I mean, it's one of the whitest places I've ever been in my life. So it took a little kind of getting used to there. I mean, the kids were great. I've always had a pretty good time with the kids, no matter where I taught, except for Lake Worth, which I'll talk about later. But one thing I realized was Miss Jones rules with an iron fist, and she wanted absolute quiet. That's like the most important thing to her was, I want quiet. The kids have to be quiet. One of the problems with this is when I interviewed with them, I provided them with a DVD of how I conduct my classes. You can find these videos, they're the Halsey videos down towards the bottom of my channel list. And you can readily see what kind of teacher I am and what my classes are like. I didn't really plan on changing anything. I was going to teach the same way in Chandler as I taught in Dallas because that's just me. I'm a very energetic, enthusiastic, high energy type teacher, and I like the kids to have fun. I like them to be a little bit loud. I like them to be interactive. I like them cheering each other on. It's just the way I teach. I find that the kids learn better when they're having fun. It only makes sense. But that didn't go over real well in Chandler. And again, I blame Chandler for this because I gave them a DVD and they told me they watched it. So they knew what they were getting when they hired me. But two particular teachers, Shanda and Wanda, they were on the same hallway. This intermediate school had a 4th grade hallway, a 5th grade hallway, and a 6th grade hallway, all the 6th grade classes. I was on the 6th grade hallway. We had another lady who taught math, a guy named George who taught science, Shanda taught English, and Wanda taught English, and I was the other math teacher. So it was 5 teachers, 5 of us 6th grade math teachers on that hallway. Well, Wanda and Shanda almost immediately started complaining about me. They would go to, actually, let me leave this to a little later. I want to talk more about this idea of being quiet. Miss Jones wanted the school to be absolutely quiet. She wanted the hallways to be quiet, the classrooms to be quiet. Hell, she even wanted the school gymnasium to be quiet. In a faculty meeting once, she told a story about how she was walking from her office down the hallway, and the gymnasium was right down the hall from the main office, her office. And she was walking down there and realized how quiet it was. And she thought that maybe the kids were outside playing because it was just too quiet. Well, she opened the gym door. There were all the kids. The PE teachers were demanding that the kids play absolutely quiet because that's what Miss Jones wanted. She wanted quiet. I don't know what this woman's problem was, but she wanted absolute quiet. And she started applauding, and she wanted us all to applaud the PE teachers because they were making the kids play quietly. It's just sad. These are children, 6th, 4th, 5th, 6th grade. I mean, what's that, 10, 11, 12 years old? I mean, these are young kids, and they're just being ruled over like, be quiet, be quiet. The 2 words I heard more than anything else during the time I was at Chandler was, be quiet, sit down, be quiet. It was insane. Towards the beginning of the school year, of course, sports, especially football in Texas, is a huge deal. Chandler Intermediate School is about a half-hour drive from the Brownsboro ISD. And what they did at the beginning of the year was they loaded all of our kids up on school buses, and we all went over to the football field, the high school football field, to have kind of a meet the football team day. It was a pep rally, basically. Pep rally for the football team. And all the kids were in the stands, the bleachers. These are those metal bleachers. You can stomp your feet and make a bunch of noise. So we all go over there, and I'm sitting actually amongst my students. My sixth grade class were sitting there, and I'm cheering and having fun with them. Well, the other teachers, mainly Shanda and Wanda, they're standing on the aisle screaming at our kids to be quiet. Sit down, be quiet. I mean, they were being louder than the kids, hollering at them to be quiet. But apparently that's what Miss Jones wanted. She wanted the intermediate school kids to show how well controlled, well disciplined they were. Be quiet. Don't say anything. And this was a pep rally. It's supposed to get loud. I remember each day the kids would be required to line up in the hallways, which makes a certain amount of sense. These are still intermediate, lower level grades, but they were required to stand in the hallways next to on the side of the hallway, next to the wall, quietly, all facing the same direction, and they were supposed to be absolutely quiet. Well, Wanda and Shanda, these two crazy women, they spend the whole time screaming at the kids to be quiet. It became crazy. The kids weren't even saying anything, or they may be a little bit of whispering, but Wanda and Shanda are screaming, shut up, be quiet, face front. I'm like, man, you want them to be quiet? You're making way more noise than they were making. They are being quiet. These are children. They're pretty darn well behaved. So that was nuts. Chandler liked to brag about how we're a family. They would tell Mr. Kilburn, welcome to the CIS, Chandler Intermediate School. Welcome to the CIS family. I was never really made to feel a part of the family there. I remember we had a Christmas party, and my wife and I went to this Christmas banquet, this buffet, and we definitely weren't made to feel welcome. I mean, this is one of the most cliquish places I've ever found. I forget whether I mentioned this earlier, but back to the whole social studies thing. When the school year started, it turned out that George, the science teacher, he only had one class of social studies. And myself, I had basically two math classes. They were double blocked, so I had 2 periods each of 2 math classes. And I also was given 3 social studies classes. The English teachers and the other math teachers, they didn't have to have any social studies classes, which is another thing that pissed me off and made me start losing respect for Miss Jones pretty quick. She had not only lied to me about being expected to teach social studies in addition to math, but she also lied to me when she told me that all the other teachers were also required or expected to teach social studies. That was another lie. I'm the only one that I had the most by far, 3 classes. The strange thing though is I found this out. I'm the only one that was even certified in social studies. George, he wasn't certified in social studies. And if there were any other, I don't know what other classes, I didn't really care too much about the 4th or 5th grades, but George wasn't even certified to teach it. So technically he shouldn't have been allowed to teach it anyway. By law, only certified teachers can teach. Well, the year went on. I remember once Wanda came into my class, because these 2 women, Shanda and Wanda, they were just evil. They were horrible. Wanda was a crazy woman anyway. She was this big, fat, pasty skin thing, stringy brown hair. She liked to step on the kids' feet. These were 6th graders. She liked to step on their feet while they're standing in line. And another weird thing she would do, she would share with the kids that she had never been with a man in, that way. She liked to share that with her classes. This woman shouldn't even have been allowed to teach as far as I'm concerned. She also liked to brag to me that she was a great teacher because she taught exactly the same way she was taught when she was in school, because she had nothing but great teachers. I don't know if she was a great teacher or not. Don't care. I do my thing. You do your thing. Leave each other alone. I remember one day she came into my room and told me she didn't like me and she wished I'd leave. I told her, of course, I'll leave when I'm darn good and ready. I said, I'm actually preparing to take the high school math test. I told her, I said, I think I'd like to teach with a more mature group of, work with a more mature group of people anyway. She looked at me and said, Mr. Kilburn, you're not going to find those children any more mature than ours. And I said, Wanda, I'm not talking about the kids. I'm talking about the people I have to work with. So yeah, she didn't like that too much. One day, Miss Jones called me in and to her office and said she'd been getting complaints, and I knew who it was, Shanda and Wanda, complaining that they said that they had a hard time gaining control over their students, my students, once they left my room, that they weren't able to get control over them the way they used to be able to. So apparently this was my fault. I just told Miss Jones that, I don't see that as a me problem. That's their problem. I teach the way I teach. I conduct my classes the way I do. And if they're having a problem gaining control in their classes, I think that's their problem, not mine. But this is just kind of the way it went. One thing I like to do is I taught math. There was a TV show called Numbers. If you haven't seen it, I suggest you watch it. Great show. It's essentially a police procedural. The premise of the show is an FBI guy. He's like an agent with the FBI. His brother is a math genius, and the brother helps the FBI solve crimes using mathematics. And I wanted to show that TV show periodically to kind of just by way of showing the kids, look, mathematics is really useful in the real world. And although the level of math they use on this show is a bit higher than what we teach sixth graders, I just thought it'd be a good idea. Well, that was controversial right away. I mean, it was just too violent and all this crap. Miss Jones told me I needed to get a letter approval from parents to allow me to teach. So I said, all right, no problem. So I drafted a letter. I gave the letter to all my students, had them take it home. Every single parent gave me permission to show numbers to their kids at the sixth grade level. Miss Jones had a problem with that, though, because I didn't get my letter approved by her before I took it upon myself to send it out. So she was still against me showing this TV show in my classroom. They even had a school board meeting. It wasn't just about me showing numbers. It was some other stuff, but the school board meeting was during the day. So I was required to go over to the school board meeting because they were going to discuss my showing of this horrible, horrible TV show sometimes in my classroom. It was the weirdest thing. There was one lady there, I remember it was a parent. She was so distraught. She was actually crying, talking about the idea that once her child got up into my grade, sixth grade, that she might be exposed to this horrible TV show. I thought, man, where am I, man? Is this like Footloose or something? It's crazy. Well, anyway, this went on that way during the first half of the year. Right before Christmas break, Miss Jones came to my room and told me, Mr. Kilburn, you need to come see me before you go home for the day. So I went to her office at the end of the school day. She informed me that I was to report to the superintendent's office the next morning before coming to work. So I did. I went to the superintendent's office. I don't remember his name. God, hopefully he's retired by now. Actually, I know he is because they've got a new superintendent out there. This guy had been there forever. He'd been a superintendent in this little district for like 20-something years, 28 years if I remember. Just an old guy, probably just been there way too long. But I go in, he had never met me, I had never met him, but I go into his office, he goes, Mr. Kilburn, I believe that you have the potential to be a good teacher someday, but clearly you're not a team player. I'm like, where the hell am I? This man had never been to my room. He's relying, I'm sure, on just what Mary Ann Jones is telling him, telling me I'm not a team player. I've mentioned this in other videos. This whole team player concept with teachers pisses me off anyway. It's ludicrous. It's stupid. Teaching is not a team sport. At least nowhere I ever saw it wasn't a team sport. As a teacher, you're stuck in that classroom with the kids. Nobody's there to help you. It's not a team activity. And teachers are essentially, well, we're contracted employees. So in a sense, we're like independent contractors. I mean, you're expected to comply and abide by certain rules and procedures, but you're essentially contracted. You're not just a normal employee that's hired and trained, and then if somebody wants to get rid of you, they do. You're on a year-to-year contract. So he had decided I wasn't going to be a team player. I really always look back on that and think I wish I had told him, well, sir, you probably have the potential to be a good superintendent someday too, but, you know, I didn't. I have a habit of biting my tongue. You know, you always kind of look back and I wish I'd said this or I wish I'd said that, but I was nice. But he goes, well, Mr. Kilburn, I'm going to reassign you to the alternative education campus. alternative education program to finish out your contract. All right, fine. No biggie. There's some stories I could tell about that place, but it was easy duty. I mean, by this point, I wasn't planning to return to Brownsboro or Chandler the next year anyway, and certainly didn't expect to be asked back. I know while I was at the alternative education, these are with the bad kids. I mean, most of these kids should probably be in juvie or jail rather than on the school campus, but this is modern America. It's what they do. They put them in an alternative education program to let them just sit at a computer and teach themselves all day long. Weird thing, it was a principal at the alternative education. The thing was Miss Thornton. She was a crazy old woman. She basically got pretty much everybody at the alternative ed program were people just like me, people that weren't accepted or weren't liked where they were, so they kicked them out and threw them over to AEP. Actually, one of the AEP teachers told me that, Mr. Kilburn, we're all rejects here. They didn't like us, so they got rid of us. Oh, okay, well, good. I'm at least with my own kind over here. But Thornton was horrible. She was a waste, and I could definitely see why she didn't make it as a real principal in a real school. They had also hired, they had this guy, this big country hit guy named Billy Bob Barnes. Man, you don't get more classic redneck name than Billy Bob. Hey, Billy Bob, big old retired ag teacher that they had hired to basically serve as like the warden of the alternative ed program. He was funny. Every morning he would try to give what he thought was some inspirational. He's like he's going to motivate these young kids to change their ways and get better. But they basically had no respect for him. Plus, because he was an idiot. He didn't know what he was talking about. He didn't come in with a plan, didn't know what he was going to say, just fumbled along, thinking he was motivating these kids. He was also a bully. I mean, I saw him bully these kids. I actually wrote a letter to the superintendent about Billy Bob bullying these kids and took it upon myself to call some of the parents of these kids too. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. Whatever, I did. Let me see, the year went on. This job was great. Basically, I was able to start getting really serious about studying to take the high school math certification test. So this job gave me time to do that because I was really just kind of an overseer. I sat in a room watching the kids study, and if they had problems or questions about math, they were free to ask me. But basically, it was just a long 7, 8 hour boring day. But I made use of that time by studying math and getting ready for the high school certification test. A little while later, I want to say this was around spring break time, certainly before the school year ended, the superintendent came in, presented me with a letter informing me that he was going to recommend to the school board that I not be offered a contract to return. Well, that wasn't a shock. I wasn't expecting to get offered to return, and I wasn't planning to return anyway. But it's at least nice that the guy gave me the letter. Most school districts don't do it by the law. The Education Code, Texas Education Code, says that school districts are required to provide the teacher with a letter from the school board if they're not being renewed, if their contract's not going to be renewed. But most districts, they're dishonest. They don't do it that way. The principal will just call you in and say, hey, guess what? You're not coming back next year. In the best interest of the district, we're not bringing you back next year. And they basically do it illegally. I mean, there's a reason for that. And all things considered, it kind of helps the teacher that's getting let go. It really does. But it's still not legal that they do that. But the superintendent, again, I can't think of his name, gave me this letter informing me that he wasn't going to, he was going to recommend to the district that I not be renewed and called back next year. Now that letter actually would end up serving me very, very well. My next video, I'm going to talk about a short period of time that I spent with the Longview Independent School District. I was at Longview High School in Longview, Texas for a very, very short period of time. Didn't work out well at all. But the letter that the superintendent gave me would ensure that the Brownsboro Independent School District basically ended up paying me for another year and a half after I was gone. And I'll explain what that was and how that happened in my next video. As always, thank you so much for watching my video. If you're watching all of them, I certainly appreciate it. If you want to subscribe, by all means do. If you want to leave a comment, go ahead. But until next time, thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.